Hey everybody, and welcome to day 9 of our 15-day scrapbooking vlog challenge. Today I wanted to share with you a simple technique that gets really great results. And I was inspired by this Words paper. I think it's called Words. It's a paper from, well, of course I'm not going to be able to think of it right now. I'll link it below, but I'm obsessed with it. And I got it in a kit, and I just couldn't wait to use it. You can see Adeline's hands there helping me out. So I'm showing you the supplies that I grabbed. I've got a couple paintbrushes. I have a pencil that I'm going to be using the eraser for, a mini ink dauber, some watercolor paper from Tim Holtz, color box white pigment ink, and then you can't see this really well, but I use those hole punches, or the punches, to create templates out of just some packaging. And one was 2.5 inches, one was 1.25 inches, I can't remember. And then I have, how many is that? 7 different distress inks here. And Spun Sugar was one. That one, I'm going a little too fast, but you can rewind it back and see if you want the exact colors. And I'll try to list them below too. But yeah, I got this background paper in the kit, and I just quickly became obsessed with it, and I knew that I wanted to try to recreate it. And so I started kind of going through my head, like, what could I use? I know that I would need white ink for the bokeh effect, and I had white ink, but what would I use for circles? And so using circle punches just kind of came to mind, and then I knew, I just tried to grab any kind of round object that I had that could be used as an applicator for ink. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I grab my craft mat, and at first I start taping it directly down to the craft mat, and then I was like, wait a minute, this isn't going to work because I don't want it to warp. So then what I did is I went and I got the back of a artist's sketch pad that I had tore off, and you can see it there. And I just taped my watercolor paper to that. Now this watercolor paper is from Tim Holtz, like I said, and it is a standard card size. Let's see, I have the packaging right here. Let's see if it says the size. It is 4.25 by 5.5. And I'm not going to show you the complete card. Well, you see the picture of it, because the rest of it was very simple. I just used some dotted border dies from Lawn Fawn and did a stitched border, and then I used an old Simon Says stamp, "You Are Very Special" stamp with some white embossing powder for the greeting. So that part was simple. I wanted the focus of this video to be, there's my baby bump again, to be on how to create this really simple bokeh effect that's beautiful. So I start off by using my paintbrush. Well, right now I'm just taking all the different colors of ink, and I'm just smearing them all over my craft pad. And then I'll grab my Tim Holtz mini mister and just spritz them with some water, which in hindsight I probably didn't need to do since I was putting water on my paintbrush anyway, but it's okay. And so you can't see it here, it's not in frame, I have it zoomed up really close, but they just line all the way around my craft pad, or my craft mat. And now what I am doing is using a really big paintbrush, and I'm just really saturating my watercolor paper with water because I want this color to flow really, really, really smoothly. And so that's what I'm doing there. And now I guess I'm taking, what am I trying to say? I forgot to add all my ink colors down. That's what I'm saying. Alright, so then I just grab a paintbrush, and it's kind of a looser brush. I think I got it in a set from Michael's. And I just start applying color. And I'm looking, I have the piece of paper over to the side so that I can see it and reference it. I start with the bluish color, and I just stick it all over. And you can see, because the watercolor paper is so wet, that it's moving very freely. It's not staying in one spot. I try to pay attention to the colors that I add next to each other because they will mix since it's a distress ink, and I don't want them to turn into any ugly grays or browns or any nasty colors that I won't like. So I'm trying to pay special attention to which colors go where, and I'm trying to to spread them out a little bit so there's not a ton of the same color next to each other. Adding that purplishy color. I wish I could remember the colors, and I actually wrote them down, but I took my planner downstairs, and so I don't have it to reference. I'm sorry. I'll add them in the description below so you can see. And some of you guys use these inks so much that you'll just recognize them right away. So I'm adding colors. I'm looking at the paper, trying to decide which colors that I need more of and where. That's Spun Sugar. I needed a lighter pink. Come back in with the lighter purple. And I'm quickly realizing that I don't really have a lot of blue. I don't have the exact color blue that I want, so I will go back and grab an 8th color, which I think is cracked pistachio. And I couldn't find my Kleenex, so I just kind of let it run off to the side. It was no big deal. So I wanted to have this layer of color completely dry before I came in and applied a second layer. So I just grabbed my heat tool and I'm just moving it around. I'm letting the water move around still a little bit so that it blends together a little bit more, and I just heat that up. And as it heats, you can really start to see the color becoming more rich and vibrant, and them blending together. So after I get that all heat set, I will just go back in with a few other colors and put them where I think they need to go, which is what I am doing right now. I add a little bit more yellow. Some more blue. I added some pink up there in that top left corner. Down in the bottom. And if you could see the pattern paper next to the card, which you can't because it's so zoomed in, you would really start to see that this is starting to resemble the pattern paper a lot. And at this point, I'm really happy with the look that, yeah, there I grabbed cracked pistachio. I'm really becoming happy with the look that I'm getting. So I'll add that on there, and I think this is the color that just kind of set it off. Yep. It blends together so beautifully with all the other colors. So I finish adding all my colors, and then I go back and I heat set it one more time. Make sure it's nice and dry. Oh, I guess I decided that I needed some more color in a couple different spots. Now, one of the biggest differences between the pattern paper and the way that this background turned out was that you can see like the harsher lines where the colors have dried. If I would have let this dry by itself or have blended the colors a little bit better, I probably wouldn't have had those, but it doesn't bother me. I kind of like it that way because it gives it that kind of raw look to the colors. So I was fine with that. And plus with the pattern paper, it's going to be a little bit more of a smooth effect anyway. So I was okay with it. All right, so I'm cleaning off my mat because I'm ready to start the actual bokeh technique, and I don't want any of that distress ink to be on my mat because it'll transfer over to the back of my watercolor paper. And I'm just putting my craft mat away. Making sure it's nice and dry. It didn't have to be perfectly dry to continue, but I don't work with this white ink very often, and so I know that it takes a while to dry. The ink itself does, that I'll be using to make the circles, and so I didn't know how it would react with the distress ink. I'm just not very experienced with it, so I wanted to make sure that the distress ink was as dry as possible and that there wasn't any moisture that would intermix. So I grabbed my ink blending tool, and you can see up at the top left-hand corner that I have one of my templates, and it's as easy as that. I just lay it down and I just pat on the color, and in no time at all you're left with these beautiful circle inked images on your background. And like I said, it does stay wet for quite a while, so like the template stayed wet for a while. I had to be careful that I didn't get my fingers in it, because if I got my fingers in the white ink, then I accidentally smudged in like one spot. You can see me right there trying to wipe it off. But that was fixable, because I come back in now with the larger one and I'm overlaying it on top of the other, and that's what gives it the effect of like the circles being behind each other or in front of each other, because when they dry different shades of white. And I do end up covering most of the background. You can pounce lighter on some of the areas to get a lighter color, and heavier or thicker on some of the other areas to get a darker color. There's really no limit to what you could do with this. You could even do different colors if you wanted. Instead of using white, you could do something else. Here I'm using the pencil eraser, and I'm just using that for some smaller ones. At this point, I'm like, why don't I just use the mini ink blending tool itself? It's a circle. So I do that, but I don't think I like the results as much, and I think that template right there is about the exact same size. So I just go back to using it. So the biggest thing is that you can control how much of the background you want to be covered, or how little. And for me, I wanted it to be pretty much completely covered, because that was the look that I was getting from the pattern paper. So I just went through and I made sure that there weren't any really harsh places where the color from the distress inks was coming in really strongly from behind the white. And at this point, I decide that I am through and I like what I'm seeing. So I grab my heat tool and I let it sit and just kind of heat up for a little bit. I do let it sit on its own for probably 20-25 minutes before I go in and do my embossing. And if you notice in the picture at the front, it still wasn't completely dry because I had some white embossing powder stick to my greeting, but that's okay. That happens. So I'll peel off my tape, and I'll cut off, whenever I go to make the card, I'll cut off the rest of that white border around, because I'll be matting it on some blue cardstock, and then onto my card base. And just like that, you have a very super simple bokeh technique that that I think did a really good job of coordinating or matching the pattern paper that I am so obsessed with, and that I'm still trying to figure out a way to use. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'd love to see comments below. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it to let YouTube know, and I will see you tomorrow for another challenge. Bye!